Redditors who clean up crime scenes. What's the most bizarre thing you've witnessed? Crime scene cleaner here. My first suicide cleanup was quite an experience. Man shot himself in the head in his garage. I'll never forget needing to use pliers to pull teeth and skull fragments out of the drywall behind where he sat. Or that blood and brain managed to make its way more than 50 feet across the garage. Most disturbing though, was his pickup. We chose to take it to our company wash bay to pressure wash it and make sure it was as clean as possible. I cleaned it myself and was satisfied that I had done well. Inspected for blood and couldn't find anything. So I began driving it back to the owner's garage. On the way back a slight drizzle began and switched on the wiper blades. Imagine my horror as a chunk of brain streaks across my newly cleaned windshield. I pulled over quickly and cleaned it up. But it still makes me sick to think what would have happened if it didn't rain that day. This man's poor wife or daughter would have been met with that sight and been crushed again by the impact of suicide. That's 10 years ago and I'll never forget it. Now I triple or quadruple check every job. My job is to clear landmines. I clean war crimes. You can say, yay. Bit of a stretch. I know. Recently a cow had walked into a minefield in our area of operations and stepped on a small anti-personnel mine. However, this mine was boosted by having been buried on top of a directional fragmentation mine. Gamers and soldiers. Think Claymore. But bigger dart. The cow had literally been split in half, with cow intestines spread all over the area and hanging from trees like Hannibal's Christmas ornaments. Edit. Love the puns less than 3. Family member did heavy duty cleaning including crime scenes. A guy shot his head off with a shotgun. EMTs were supposed to pick him up, literally, but missed a large chunk of brain behind the couch. That was when said family member decided to find other engagement. My best friend used to have this job. Most of the bizarre stuff was cleaning up suicides. Found the guy's full intact mustache across the room when he blew his head off with a shotgun. One guy tried to kill himself by shooting his stomach with a small caliber pistol. He didn't die immediately, so he wrote tons of whacked out stuff on the walls with his blood. Then finished the job. Was dispatched to a vehicle vs pedestrian call a couple months ago. And when we arrived on scene it was like something out of a movie. Dude was running across a fairly busy 4-lane road and was hit by a car traveling about 55 miles per hour. After his head went through the windshield of the first vehicle, he then proceeded to be thrown into the opposite lane and was ran over and dragged about 20 yards by another vehicle. Once the coroner was on scene with traffic investigations, we proceeded to pick up his organs bit by bit. It was a fantastic anatomy lesson. Use a T-mop. Propane nat gas explosion. Guy's arm was holding onto a ladder going up a holding tank. No body, no anything. Just an arm. Preemptive edit. It was his left arm. I don't clean them for a living but had to clean a few apartments when my uncle managed an apartment complex. We had one tenant OD on heroin. He sat there for roughly 3 weeks before anyone noticed the smell. They took his body and left it to us to clean up. The dude vomited on the ceiling. There were little dry droplets of vomit all over the ceiling right above where he died, and to top it off he basically liquefied and left a puddle of gut juices on the concrete foundation underneath the carpet. I thought that it was left to a professional team. But I guess it's optional, and if you don't want to pay for it, you can scoop the brains and blood up yourself. Okay. Not a crime scene cleaner but am a medic. Have a few bizarre ones. Came into a home to find a man who had attempted to commit suicide by putting a pistol under his jaw but failed, had a second thought. He ended up having to crawl 5 feet away to where he had thrown the pistol after only blowing the left side of his face off to finish the job. The second one did the trick. Just about every surface in his living room had some remnant of the poor guy. He left behind 2 kids. Another time we had a husband who had caught his wife cheating and had turned on the garbage disposal and forced her arm down it. Massive hemorrhaging. But unfortunately she was DOA. Husband ended up with a self-inflicted shotgun wound. People really don't understand just how messy a shotgun can make things. Think the Hulk smashing a blood and brain-filled pinata. And this one was more weird than anything, but here goes. Older gentleman we were called to after police performed a wellness check, late 70s. Nice house. Nice foreign car in the driveway. Pictures of prayers and crosses all over the house. We head into the bedroom and there he is naked except for what I assume was one of Thos's 16 un-Halloween costumes. Honestly I don't know, but he ended up having a heart attack mid-pleasure time while choking himself with a rosary. Definitely one of the weirdest things I ever saw during my time working the box. I've got a ton. I used to do CSI work and was an autopsy tech, so I would both go to the scene, investigate, bring the body back to the morgue, and help with the autopsy. Anyways, this person murdered their spouse and stuffed the body into a fridge and buried it in the woods. When you have a body exposed to the elements, you have normal decomposition to look forward to, such as insects, bloating gases, skin coming off, bones showing, etc. Once you've seen a few, then you know that this kind of decomp state of body is normal and you know what to expect. There are varying levels of stuff you deal with, but it's all within an expected spectrum of the job. Hope that makes sense. However, in this case, this person was sealed and so you didn't have any of that. They were essentially stewing in there for almost a year, might have been longer. I don't remember the exact time. I wasn't there on scene when they found the person, only in the morgue, to help with the autopsy, so I prep the room. Doctor comes in, and I pull out the body from the fridge and wheel them into where we do the actual autopsy. Opened the bag, and oh my god, the smell. I'll never, ever forget the smell. I've dealt with bodies in various stages of death and decomposition, but holy it, this was on 10 other levels. Now the morgue has HVAC, air filters, fresheners, and all that, but they weren't effective at all for the smell. It was so bad I gagged, which I've never done before, and almost threw up in my mask. The doctor was struggling to the dock, double-backed, and almost looked like they were gonna faint. It was the purest, worst, most concentrated, extremely pungent ammonia smell you could think of. I had never smelled anything like that in my career at that point. If wine ages well and is better with time, this ammonia smell did the exact opposite, and it was somewhere worse than anything you could think of. The smell stuck to us too, on our skin, for about a week. No matter how hard I scrubbed, I can still smell it if I think about it. The texture of the body didn't help either. It was so slippery and wet that flecks of the ammonia fluid splashed onto my skin. The long gloves went up to my forearm, not all the way to my scrubs. It was the worst autopsy of my life. It took about 3 hours because we kept having to take breaks and it was a difficult body to work on due to how fragile it was. It beat out everything else I saw, from the crazy accident fatalities, the interesting suicides, to even the person who had half their face eaten by rats and half their body covered in a sea of maggots and insects. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Also, RIP inbox, pun intended. Edit 2. HVAC, not HEPA. So, I work in healthcare. Crazy stuff comes in all the time. One time a woman came in who was shot in the V. She was dirty, in only a bra. I thought she was a prostitute tossed from a car. Turns out she was drinking with her BF and another guy. She and the BF got into a fight. Like, serious fight. The BF starts choking her out. So the friend runs upstairs, grabs a gun, and tries to shoot out the legs of the BF. Well, he missed and shot her instead. Took a bit of explaining to clear that up. Edit. I forgot to mention, the lady did fine considering. I don't know all of the legal consequences, or how all of that worked out. I'm not a crime scene but a friend of mine works as a detective for homicides and vice. Sometimes the two combine. Usually she doesn't talk about work, ever, but she was clearly suffering from this scene. She described the following. Imagine a small apartment. 1 bedroom. 1 separate kitchen. A small living room. Small bathroom. Tiny toilet. You enter the small hallway and you find a trail of blood. You follow the trail and at the end of the trail is someone hanging out of the living room window with half her head blown off. She apparently tried to commit suicide by shooting herself. It didn't stick and she decided to jump out of her window but died before she could fall down. You look around and enter the kitchen. There's a baby in the kitchen. The baby is no longer alive because it's face down in the sink full of clear water. The child was drowned. Later they found out the mother did it. You keep exploring the scene. In the bedroom her other 2 children were found. They were older. 4 and 7 years old. Boy and girl. They apparently fled from their mother after she killed the baby. The mother came after them with a knife. There was a lot of blood. Each kid had over 30 stab wounds. It was an otherwise normal family of 5. Stay-at-home mother. Working father. Talented sporty boy. Very smart girl. And a few months old baby girl. So where is the father? Is he a potential suspect? Can we find anyone who knows where he is? Let's tag and bag the scene. Consider him suspect for now. Put a warrant out for his arrest, or whatever kind of come with us innocent until proven guilty person arrest there is. Then the father steps out of the elevator outside the front door of his apartment. He looks at the open door with brown curds rolling out with covered bodies of his children and wife. He looks at the police presence and detectives in white suits. The hysterically crying man is having a meltdown of astronomical proportions. And my friend was there to see it all unfold in front of her eyes in the span of one afternoon, The guy was innocent. The timeline was something like this. The mother had not slept in days because of the baby crying. Out of pure frustration she drowned the baby. Her other children saw her do it. She panicked and killed the other children. She panicked even more and tried to blow her own head off. But that didn't immediately work, so she tried to jump down the windows to kill herself. Blood loss made her pass out and she died hanging from the window, where she was spotted by a neighbor who called the cops. The cops opened the door. Saw it wasn't their type of scene, My friend has seen suicides of all kinds. She's seen the results of 2 young kids committing suicide by train. She's seen all types of hangings. She's seen all types of necrosis. She's seen it all. But not a happy family going from heaven to the deepest depths of hell in the span of one afternoon. She's been on paid leave for a few weeks now. It was simply too much. I have no idea how people can do that job for several decades. Just trying to do my part to get actual crime cleaners here, but I'm a medic, so similar I guess. One time we found this guy dead in his home in the corner of the living room, tucked around the couch. Ass up, no cloths on. Literal coffee ground looking, it spread everywhere across the house. On the floors. Furniture. Walls. Everywhere. Along with mass amounts of liquor bottles and glass everywhere. He had massive GI issues along with drinking himself to death. Don't know what was worse, the smell or the scene. Craziest it I ever hear as an EMT in training was a cops and EMTs responding to a GSW gunshot wound. Cops where I live have to clear the scene first before medical personnel can go in. They find the guy, head completely missing from the lower mandible upward. 2 boys scared shitless hiding under their beds after witnessing him blow his head off with a 12 gauge. Medics where I live are legally required to check for a pulse. As one does and the other, they are tandem, calls it in. Said dead body stands up and sits back down. Then does it 2 more times. The last one puts its hands out like Frankenstein. Keep in mind there is nothing from the jawline up. The second officer said if he does it 1 more time he's shooting him. As morbid as it is, I laughed at that part. Edit, whoever golded me. Thank you, but anyone further please donate it. I suggest Justin Wren's Fight for the Forgotten Organization or any fund for the fires in CA. Great question. I looked through some other threads for relevant responses and found a few. You laughing with myself said, here. More than I was at a scene recently where someone jumped off a balcony onto the street below. The balconies of the 2nd and 3rd floors extend out further than the others. The person left pieces of themselves on the 3rd floor and the rest of them continued down to the 2nd floor. More than another one that I attended a few years ago was a suicide attempt in a nursing home. A lady cut both her wrist and waited to die. The only problem was that the wounds were too superficial. She had a bit of time to kill. So she made herself a smoothie, watched some TV, went to the bathroom. Basically just going about her normal day. She eventually changed her mind and called for help. U55 said, here. More than the company I work for doesn't usually clean up crime scenes. But it's something my boss has been trying to get into for a while. We have gone and done a couple of bits. Usually when we show up the crime scene is over a week old. Sometimes 2. This one in particular. A man murdered his girlfriend and confessed the next day. So it was about 3 or 4 days old. This man stabbed his girlfriend 56 times throughout the home while she was trying to get away. He then scalped her in the bathroom. There was blood and hair everywhere. That's not even the most fucked up part. After she was dead, he cut off her boob and cooked it in a frying pan. Drugs were involved. Deleted, said, here. More than as a fire department chaplain. Part of my job was clearing the trauma from the room. So I think I count. More than I've cleaned some real messes. Shotgun suicides. Homicides. But most disturbing for me was a car accident where an infant died. Broke his neck, I think. Nobody else was too seriously injured. Prying that infant from the arms of his mother is a moment seared into my brain forever. I can put corpses on gurneys all day long. Pick skull fragments out of a wall. Or collect limbs from the side of a freeway, no problem. But the wails of the mom. Her desperate rocking and tight grip on her child. And the smell and look and feel of death on a person who hadn't even yet experienced life. It was wrong. It just felt wrong on the most primal level for me.